Your FIRE number is the amount of money you need to have in liquid investments to cover your living expenses for the rest of your life without working. Once you reach this number, you may or may not choose to continue working, but either way, you're financially independent. Now, this number is different than net worth, which is a number that might include your home, for example, but your FIRE number does not include your home, your vehicle, or any other non-liquid asset. Your FIRE number is based only on how much you have saved and invested. To calculate your FIRE number, multiply your annual expenses by 25. That's it. That's the simple way to calculate your FIRE number, and I could end the video right here. You could give it a like and be on your way. But wait, there's more. Because some think this calculation is too aggressive, and some people think it's too conservative. And so I'll show you how to adjust this calculation, but I like the 4% rule as a place to start. It gets you in the ballpark to the point where you are approximately financially independent. And this has very interesting implications for your everyday spending decisions, especially when it comes to recurring expenses. More on that in a minute. But I think that when you're starting out on this journey, this is all you really need to know about your FIRE number. It's annual expenses times 25. For example, if your annual living expenses are $40,000 per year, you would take $40,000 times 25, and that's $1 million. That's what you need. That's your FIRE number. This simple calculation, this 25x, is based on the 4% rule. Perhaps you've heard of this before. The 4% rule is a guideline used in retirement planning that suggests that retirees can withdraw 4% of their retirement savings each year without running out of money over a 30-year period. This rule is based on research done by Bill Bengen in the 1990s. Bengen is a financial planner and researcher, and his research focused on determining a safe withdrawal rate for retirees to help them avoid depleting their savings over a typical retirement period. Bengen analyzed historical stock and bond market data, looking at various timeframes to assess how different withdrawal rates would affect retirement portfolios. He considered factors like inflation, investment returns, and the timing of withdrawals. His findings indicated that a 4% withdrawal rate, adjusted for inflation, would generally allow retirees to sustain their portfolios for at least 30 years without running out of money. So 4% withdrawal is considered a very safe withdrawal, and in most scenarios, your portfolio would actually grow larger than necessary, which means that you could actually withdraw more than 4%. So you might decide that 4% is too conservative, especially if you have other sources of income, and so maybe you'd want to bump your withdrawal rate up to, say, 5%. In that case, to calculate your FIRE number, you would multiply your expenses by 20. Now, others of you might want to be more conservative with your withdrawal rate, especially if you need your portfolio to provide income and this is your sole source of income over decades. You really need to make sure that that portfolio is going to last. Because if markets perform poorly, especially in the early years of a retirement, there is a slight chance that the 4% rule could fail. Bengen's research assumed a 30-year retirement period, and early retirees are hoping for a longer retirement than that. So, yeah, they may want to play it extra safe and assume a lower withdrawal rate of, let's say, 3%. And in that case, if you assume a withdrawal rate of 3%, you would need to have 33 times your annual expenses saved and invested. Whatever you decide for your safe withdrawal rate, you can determine your FIRE number with that rate very easily. Take your annual expenses, multiply it by 100 divided by that safe withdrawal rate, and that is your FIRE number. For example, maybe you want to be ridiculously conservative and have a safe withdrawal rate of 2%. Well, in that case, you would multiply your annual expenses by 50. Or maybe you're Dave Ramsey and your safe withdrawal rate is like 10%. Then you would multiply your annual expenses by 10 to get your FIRE number. And by the way, I don't recommend either of those extremes. Of course, calculating these numbers assumes that you know what your annual expenses are, and most people have no idea what their expenses are. So this is where you should start. If calculating your FIRE number is step 1, then knowing how much your life costs is step 0. This is not something you just want to guess at or assume you have a general idea of how much you spend, because you probably don't. You really need to track your expenses over the course of a year, or even better, over multiple years, to get an accurate picture of your spending and how much your life costs. I would suggest using budgeting software or a financial tracking app like Empower or You Need a Budget to get an accurate picture of your spending over time. I've used Empower every single month of my financial independence journey, and I've transferred that data over to my own tracking spreadsheet, so I know what I spend each month and how that has changed over time. This way, I can calculate a FIRE number that is specific to me and my actual spending. It gives me a FIRE number that is not perfectly precise, but it's close enough so that I have a realistic number to aim for. And this is important because it's the key to the whole FIRE thing. That is the idea that there is a realistic and achievable number for each of us to aim for. It's not a mysterious, unknowable number or too big a number to even consider. It's knowable and it's within our reach. We can know what this number is and then adjust our financial life accordingly to reach that goal. With this number in mind, we don't have to wait for Social Security, a pension, or a lottery ticket to rescue us from mandatory work. We can rescue ourselves, and it starts with knowing our own FIRE number. Let's look at how this calculation applies to annual expenses and to monthly expenses, and how you can make better spending decisions with these calculations in mind. For example, if your annual living expenses are $40,000, $40,000 times 25 is $1 million, and that's your FIRE number. If your expenses are $50,000, you'll need $1,250,000. If your annual expenses are $60,000, you'll need $1.5 million. And if your expenses are $100,000, you will need $2.5 million. Now, these are all based on annual expenses, so 25 times annual expenses. But what if you want to base this off of monthly spending? Well, you can do that just as easily. Simply multiply a monthly expense by 300. I like to use this 300x rule on any recurring monthly expense in my life because this tells me how much I would need to have saved in my portfolio to cover this expense once I stop working. To cover a $40 per month Apple One subscription, I would need $12,000 saved and invested. To cover a $16 per month Netflix subscription, I would need $4,800. A $100 monthly Starbucks habit is $30,000 I would need saved and invested. For most people, that alone could be easily years of 401k contributions. And that's why I find it a no-brainer to make all my coffee at home, make all my meals at home, cut out unneeded subscriptions. It all results in me needing less saved for financial independence. It's all about making your life cost less, especially those recurring monthly or annual expenses. If you cut out tens of thousands of dollars from the amount you need to save, well, then you wind up cutting years from your mandatory working life. This is powerful, life-changing stuff here. Another point I want to make here is that your annual expenses are what they are, but you also need to consider what kind of lifestyle you want to have going forward. If you currently spend $50,000 per year, but you actually aspire to a $75,000 per year lifestyle, well, you'll need to save $1,875,000 before you are financially independent for that level of spending. Or maybe you plan to spend less after working. Instead of annual expenses, maybe it would be more accurate to say 25 times desired annual expenses. But I don't want to muddy the waters too much here. Just keep in mind the lifestyle that you want to maintain when you're calculating your FIRE number. Now, what if you have other sources of income in retirement? You might have Social Security, a pension, or any number of income-producing activities in retirement. How does this affect your FIRE calculation? Quite simply, I would lop off any income that you are receiving in retirement from your expenses and calculate from there. For example, let's say you have $50,000 of annual expenses and you have a pension that provides $2,000 per month in income, or $24,000 per year. Normally, that $50,000 of annual expenses means your FIRE number is $1,250,000. But with a $24,000 per year pension, you can take $50,000, subtract $24,000 from that, and your FIRE number only needs to cover $26,000. So $26,000 times 25 is $650,000. So that pension is quite nice because in addition to providing you $2,000 per month in income, it also means that you need to save $600,000 less to reach financial independence. So those are some basic calculations you can do to get to your FIRE number. If you want to get more precise and factor in more complicated financial situations, well, that's when it's time to bring in the help of financial tools which are built to help. There are various retirement calculators out there which are really helpful, some of which are even purpose-built for early retirees. For example, you might want to check out CFIRE Sim, You Need a Budget, the retirement planning calculator at Dinkytown, the retirement calculator at Empower, or the very full-featured calculations that you can do at Bolden, which used to be called New Retirement. I'm sure there are other great tools out there too that I haven't even heard of, so if you know of any, please let us know in the comments. Tools like these will absolutely help you get more precise in your FIRE number calculation, but at some point we have to realize that there is no such thing as 100% certainty, and I think we have to say close enough. Especially if you're retiring early, there's always the possibility of earning more income or going back to work if absolutely necessary. But if things go even slightly in your favor, your portfolio is likely to explode in value over time. The 4% rule plays it safe. However, in most market scenarios, you'll end up with more than you imagined. Compound interest means that even modest stock market returns will continue to build your wealth over the years and decades. But your FIRE number is important to know so that you have a meaningful financial goal in mind. One thing your FIRE number doesn't tell you, though, is how long it will take you to get there. For that, you need to know your savings rate, which you can learn more about in this video right here.